The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Glory to you, O Lord. When Jesus looked up, he saw some wealthy people putting their offerings into the treasury, and he noticed a poor widow putting in 2 small coins. He said, "I tell you truly, this poor widow put in more than all the rest. For those others have all made offerings from their surplus wealth, but she, from her poverty, has offered her whole livelihood." The Gospel of the Lord. Yeah, it's a good and challenging little gospel passage that we have today. I think it's tough to pull it out of context. I mean, I think the lesson is here, right? Which is that I don't know. Well, there are many. I've said it many ways before, right? But everything is God's, so you got to give everything to God, right? I mean, that's part of it. But there's more that comes before this, like the fact that Jesus has just said, like really, a verse and 2 prior, that the scribes are wicked people because they defraud widows and take all their money. And they recite prayers that they don't believe in order to do that. And then he said, and then we have a widow showing up with 2 small, she doesn't have anything but 2 small coins. Why does she not have 2 small coins? It's because she was denuded by the scribes. That's why she's there with only 2 small coins. And so there's something actually deep in the passage about the corruption of the temple and the corruption of the leadership of the people, such that the woman is twice victimized. So in this sense, like our first view of her is not that she's a hero. Our first view of her is that she's twice victimized. I mean, that's the push really in the passage. But of course she is a hero, right? In the sense of her total commitment to God. And her total commitment to God, in this sense, rolls back the corruption of the temple authorities. Yeah. So in this sense, there's only one way through. There's only one way to undo injustice, and that is wholehearted charity, beneficence, generosity. That's the only way, and that is the way that Christ Jesus is going to go. That's the way that Mary, and we celebrate today her presentation, her dedication to God in the temple, her being dedicated to God by her parents, and we know that her life likewise is one of radical generosity. Mary's a very poor child. Mary is a very poor woman. The Holy Family is a very poor family. They just happen to be the most significant family in the history of the world, but they're incredibly poor. I mean, they're poor by the standards of that day. Right? So for us, they're poorer, perhaps even we can imagine it, but we haven't thought too much about it. And that's a family that moves forward the agenda of God more than any family in the history of civilization. Right? So what is it going to be for us? Right? That God's contributing to God's eternal purpose, and the only way we get to do that is by charity, by real generosity of thought and word and deed. How many less than generous thoughts have you had this morning? Think about it a little bit. How many less than generous thoughts have you had since I've started to preach? We have to go beyond ourselves. We have to. And if we can't do it here, we're not going to do it anywhere else. We're simply not. But this is it, right? God is giving us an opportunity to give ourselves over to His purposes, to live for His rule of mercy, of compassion, and we will get there. We will advance. We'll move the chains, so to speak. We will make real advances as we live the lives of joy-filled generosity, not only that he's called us to live, but that he's equipping us to live by breathing into us his own life of love today.